Layovers, your weekly dose of aviation innovation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitria, and this is Alex Hunter. We'll be the pilots for this podcast about the news, the startups, and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience. Flight time today, an hour and 33 minutes, and we expect an on-time arrival. Coming up on this flight, a bug in the Boeing 787, another bug in the American Airlines iPad cockpit app, more lines of code in the US skies, an app to ship your luggage via FedEx, the end of Terminal 1 at London Heathrow, the hope for a Malaysian airline renewal, a park and valet robot in Germany, and Four Seasons designs a plane. As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-canceling headphones.
Flight 13 to Lucy. Hi, Alex. How are you?
I'm good, Lucy. What a great airport.
Yeah, so explain what Lucy is, because maybe people will be confused with that name.
We're going to a person. Lucy is London City Airport, which I can't imagine if you've been to London, many of you have flown into, but its three-letter code is LCY, so it is affectionately referred to as Lucy, and we're going to talk a lot about her, I guess, at the at the end of this show. But it's a great little airport, arguably my favorite in London.
Yeah, well, I understand. I mean, I love my Heathrow, and I'll tell a story about it when we'll come to it later, because I was at Terminal 1 this morning. I'm in Luxembourg today, so I'll explain the whole story about Terminal 1. But first, before we start the news of the week, we just wanted to say that we're trying a little bit slightly different format today, because we realized that our episodes were starting to bubbling up in terms of time. We're reaching 2 hours. So what we're going to try, we're going to not do a topic of the week, because we feel that what people are interested in, the audience, is mostly the news of the week. So we're going to concentrate on more news in the week and not do the last bits, and we'll do them occasionally. So please give us feedback if you think it's a good idea. If you really want us to dedicate more time into one topic per week, we'll go back to it. So right now, that's our plan. So the first news of the week, a bug in a 787. Alex, what happened there?
This is another wonderful example of media hysteria. I mean, it's not cool, this little bug, but it's also been blown way out of proportion. So there is a software bug, and it is a bug, that can, in theory, shut down the AC power generators, all four of them, on a 787, irrespective of its point in flight. So it could be flying and all of the electrical power sources would shut down. That doesn't sound good, but it was discovered in laboratory testing, not in flight or on the ground or even in a real airplane. They were testing these generator control units, and if they have been running continuously for 248 days, they've been generating power continuously for 248 days, they could go into a fail-safe mode, and they will not be generating power in a fail-safe mode. And if all four of them do it at once, it's a problem. But this means the plane will have been running continuously for 248 days. Now, the smarter among you would have already figured out that this is basically a non-issue, because there is no chance in hell that a plane is going to run for 248 days without stopping, even those generators. So, yes, it's a bug, and there's been a lot of commentary about this, and the good commentary is it is not a flight safety issue, but it is a disappointing testing issue. This thing should have been caught before the plane was ever launched. So anyway, the FAA have launched an airworthiness directive saying turn it off and on again from time to time, it'll be fine, and until Boeing
turn it off on and off again. It's a little bit what we do with our computer crashes, like, whatever, let's just turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the FAA's recommendation is they could have just called tech support, and they would have been able to solve it. So
turn your modem off and on again, and everything would be sorted out. So I agree with you. It's not something. I mean, some of the headlines were really like, all the 787 will just crash from the skies in a single day tomorrow.
Yeah, it was pure hyperbole, but an interesting. I think illustrates the ongoing challenge of the complexity of aircraft systems and the things that you never would have thought of to test. Like, I'm sure one day someone will explain where that 248-day number came from and why it's 248 days, but for now, who knows?
Isn't that the number that was on Lost? It had to press a button every or something.
God, I hope not.
Still talking about codes, because that was a problem with the line of code. The FAA, which regulates the skies in the U.S., has just announced that he's completed the replacement of the 40-year-old main computer system that drives air traffic control in the U.S. Believe it or not. Wow. I mean, this shows many things. First, it shows that, unbeknownst to a lot of people, the airline industry, whether we're talking about booking, whether we're talking about all the software that goes behind airlines, where we're talking, not aircraft, but all the foundation of the industry is based on very much legacy software. And this is a proof here that this, the air traffic control in the US was driven by a computer that is more than 40 years old. But I mean, the good news, not that it's bad per se, right, Alex? It's not, it hasn't led to many issues.
Well, that's the thing. There's something rather comforting about that. It's run for 40 years with almost, very few failures. There's something rather reassuring about that.
I love, there was this quote I read, I think it was in Skift. The older systems are difficult to access remotely because few of them connect from FAA to external entities, such as through the internet. So basically what they're doing is that they're making these old servers internet friendly. Which is the point. You want them to be able to connect them centrally, to have all the modern features of softwares. And the point is here is not only that they've just released new lines of codes and created that behemoth of new software, is actually that it will lead to better management of the skies in the US. There actually is an expectations that they should actually have more flow, so potentially more aircrafts at the same time in the skies. And that's the good news.
That is good. Yeah, that will certainly help with this ongoing capacity issue. It would be interesting to, even if we do it offline, get Dan Hamilton's, our guest from a few episodes ago, our air traffic controller friend, his thoughts on this new system, if he's allowed to talk about it. But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if they've thought about, I'm sure they have. That was going to be a dumb question. I wonder what the security implications are of making these servers network accessible now, when they weren't.
Yeah, that's what we've asked.
Threat.
You and me, we've asked that question many times about, obviously everything that now relies on network is probably more at risk of hacking, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
But it's good news. They're going ahead. I wonder how the switch is made, because it's not as if just press one button and the whole system must go. It must be very hard planning to be done.
Yeah, I'd love to know how they do that.
Yes, that would be nice one day to have someone from the FAA actually talking about these kind of stuff, because these, most people, because they just use, and I'm sorry for what I'm going to say, but because, we use an iPhone, it's as simple as installing an app, so let's just press this and the entire system and the air traffic control changes. Talking about having an app and that crashes, that actually American Airlines suffered from an iPad app problem, right?
Yeah, about on the 29th of April, so just a few days ago, some tweets started to emerge, which were followed up by media interest and then a borderline frenzy that an iPad issue, and I'll describe what that issue was in a moment, had grounded the entire American Airlines 737 fleet. Now, this turned out to be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much. And it turns out that American Airlines, like most larger airlines, are in the process of swapping out their unbelievably heavy paper-based in-flight bags with all the manuals and terminal maps and departure guides and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're going paperless.
They're going paperless. They're moving it all to electronic flight bags, basically glorified iPads or literal iPads. Anyway, this happened to be the case where the iPads for this particular fleet, they started crashing and could not be rebooted, meaning that the pilots did not have access to critical information for that particular flight. They didn't have their flight plans, any of the departure plates or anything like that. And there were a lot of delays. And of course, people are sitting on the ground getting upset. It turns out that there was an app built by Jeppesen, who are a subsidiary of Boeing and are decades old, and their specialty is charts, in-flight charts, maps, all that stuff. They have an app that these guys used that was failing and causing it to cause a problem. And it turns out that the cause of the issue was a single duplicate chart for Reagan National in DC in the database.
Oh.
So it couldn't reconcile the duplicate charts, and if the pilot had favorited National, like they bookmarked it, the app became unresponsive. So all they had to do, and this is so funny, all they had to do was uninstall and reinstall the app.
So now the FAA is basically telling you to, like we said before, every 248 days, just reinstall the app. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So
it's like hilarious, like that they're having an app issue now. American Airlines were very swift to say this was not an issue with the iPad themselves. It was an issue with an app. I don't know why they felt necessary to emphasize that point, but it was interesting. So
maybe they want people to have confidence that when they see pilots and crew with an iPad that it's reliable. Maybe it's nothing to do with Apple here. It's to say, oh, don't worry, it's not the entire thing that is broken. It's just one app, and we'll figure it out. So yeah, it's
pretty funny now that they're pushing a database update in 4 days, so May 8th, and I guess in the meantime they just give them the PDF files.
Yeah,
which is so funny, isn't it?
Yeah, interestingly, in one of the articles I read about this, it was but I didn't know about the old, why it happened, but they say that American Airlines is expecting to save more than $1 million a year just in fuel because of the lightness of having, not all the paper. So actually, it makes sense. I say that in order to because some people, I've read some comments online saying, we should go back to paper. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's a reason also why we move forward. Now that even if Alex and I are both, we like our technology, we're not by definition a pure worshiper of technology. But here it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes sense. Just a quick, going now to aircrafts. I'm going to take the A380 a few times this month, and I just wanted to quickly say happy birthday to the A380 because now 10 years and a week ago, it was the first ever commercial flight from the A380.
Can you believe it's been 10 years?
No, I can't actually. My first flight was maybe 5-6 years ago or something like that. Of course, on Emirates, something like that. It's still something when I see it. This morning I was at Heathrow. There were a few Qantas, Emirates, and I think there was another. Well, yeah, the British Air was one. It's still, it's not the most magnificent plane. We repeat that a lot, but it's still impressive. Honestly, it's a nice, and its future is still uncertain. We've said many times that Emirates wants a re-engine, that there haven't been basically any orders since 2013. And that's only maybe 320 or 315. I don't remember the number of those were sold overall. So it's not a huge. Chances are you've never seen one if you're not a frequent flyer. So here's to hoping that it will continue because still it's a pretty good jet.
Yeah, and from a passenger experience point of view, it's a great airplane. It's quiet and comfortable and spacious and well lit. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. It's not, like you say, it's not an attractive airplane in the classical sense, but yeah, it's a comfortable airplane.
Yeah, it's comfortable. And talking about comfort, that the other one, the 747-8, which is even less successful here, but that both Alex and I love because we love our 747. Talking about comfort, there's apparently a fully private version that is being floated around, right?
Yeah, I found this on the most unusual source on the Daily Mirror, which is a tabloid newspaper here in the UK. They have this, what they claim is an exclusive from a couple of weeks ago, that the first private 747-800, the interior is finished. Now, I am pretty confident I saw this being built when I went to the Boeing factory in Seattle, and it was on the line.
Oh, I think you mentioned it. I remember, yeah.
But now it's taken. It's done. The interior is done. I thought, wow, I was in Seattle several years ago. This article claims that the interior refurbishment took 3 years to do.
What?
3 years. So the plane itself cost $230 million, and the interior cost another, 230 million pounds, with the interior upgrades costing another 160 million pounds. Unbelievable. They've released no details or pictures of the interior, but it is the very first one, and I think that once it's been delivered to the customer, again, they've not said who it is, we will see some pretty spectacular photos, because in terms of square footage, that plane could be a palace.
It's actually, there's not that many customers can afford that.
No, so. Exactly.
I mean, we made an episode where we mentioned a few of these private 747s in disguise, and probably one of the names we already evoked back then, it will be the name of someone who gets it, or there's not that many people will not only have the means, but also have the will and the capacity of having, like, you have to park it somewhere, right? It's not only having it.
And fuel it.
and staff it. And, so it's, it could be a government, by the way, because most people, when they say private, it doesn't mean by definition that it's owned by a single person. It could be also by a government, which could be a royalty, for instance. I mean, where, of course, the lines are very blurry with when it's royalty, what is government, it was in private, but, well, we never know. Let's hope it's not too tacky.
Yeah, and I'll be eagerly awaiting my invitation to fly on it.
Oh yeah, God damn it! Have you ever seen one of these from the inside? I mean,
I have. I've been on a Boeing business jet, not flying, but on the ground, and it was incredible. And that's just a 737. This is orders of magnitude larger. So
I've seen Gulfstreams, the business jets, the smaller ones, but never these size of aircraft. I think it's eBay. So I saw them. So like you, I went on the ground and saw how it was inside, and some were quite luxurious. But I cannot fathom the size of a 747 being completely privatized.
It's beyond belief.
Talking about Boeing, I read an interesting piece of news about the 777. So United will be using 777s, I think 200s, on U.S. routes. For a long time, there were at some point some 747s on U.S. routes, on domestic routes for the U.S. The fact that what do you think about the fact that they're releasing 77, which is a pretty big plane, on U.S. routes? This is not something that I would have expected.
You're right. There was a long period where 747s were used on People Express certainly used them. Braniff used them on domestic routes, and then United and American, but certainly United, even recently have used them. But them using them, the 777, is a natural progression from the 767, and also some of those 777-200s are getting old. Like I sent you a message offline. For some reason, every morning I always pull up one of those great plane finder apps. In fact, the app Plane Finder, just to see what's flying around. And I caught the very first 777 commercially available delivered 777 landing at Heathrow, and it was 21 years old.
Wow.
United Airlines 777 Uniform Alpha landing at Heathrow, and I was like, 21 years old, holy cow. So some of those are kind of in their retirement phase, so it seems like a good stopgap measure while they wait for additional capacity.
Okay, that's because I thought, in the US domestically, you don't have that many wide body jets.
No, you're right, sadly.
Yeah. So I was, the industry for a while seemed to be, at least in the US, seemed to have been going to like smaller aircraft, more efficient, point to point, not having these huge hub networks.
Yeah, focusing on frequency over capacity.
Exactly. Whereas by putting 777s, it's going a little bit against. They're also kind of efficient because they have two engines and not four like the 747. But you're still going into more. It's there's two L's. It's these kind of planes that I'm sure they're going to put them on very heavy routes, but still, do you think it is only because it's a stopgap before basically either selling them to someone else or scratching them, or do you think it's actually a sign of a potential change of strategy?
I think it could legitimately be both. I remember for a long time, American, probably still to this day, would use 767s on transcon routes,
Correct. Yeah.
which to me, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then you kind of augment that with 757s and in their case, Mad Dogs. But I think it could be both, right? I think it could be a capacity issue as you retire them from long haul routes in favor of more efficient, newer versions of the 777, the 787, things like that. A350, and is it American that's orders A350? Either one, I think one of them has. But anyway, yeah, I think it is a natural fleet progression for them, and a long awaited one too.
Yeah, well, I don't fly United, but it's true that most of the long routes I've done in the US, which is usually coast to coast, I've been in such old planes that I would be actually even looking forward to flying to a 777 in the US.
Yeah, even if it is 21 years old.
Even if it is 21 years old, compared to some of the old 767s, not even talking about the other ones, it's still better. But the reason I've asked you this question is that there was two other bits of news about lounges again in the US. So both AA, American Airlines, which we just mentioned before, and United, they both announced a huge plans to upgrade their lounges in the US. So lounges in the US, for those who have never traveled or maybe are not lucky enough to have access to lounges, when you go to lounges in the US, at least that's my perspective, they're very bland and bleak and nothing special, right? It's nice because it's a recluse area, so you have maybe less, crowd, etc. But compared to lounges all around the world, and I'm not even talking about lounges, of course, in the Middle East or in Asia, or some of them are very fancy. The ones in the US are very, like the airports, they are square and you have seats and that's it.
Yeah.
Some of them, I've seen some good improvements, especially again for US airlines. The ones at Heathrow are pretty good, for instance. But American Airlines is actually going to invest $2 billion in improving the entire customer experience, and most of it will be, apparently, from what I've read, to improving the lounge experience. It's like, the reason I say that is like we've been talking about this saga that we'll come to a minute, of course, we cannot escape it, about this saga between the US airlines and the Middle Eastern ones. And your point was a lot like, yeah, guys, compete. Do not only say, oh, these guys are making unfair competition, we compete. This is a sign that they're at least trying to compete, because upgrading for $2 billion is a pretty big program.
Yeah, absolutely, and good for them. I mean, that's a very, very positive step in the right direction. And you're spot on about lounges. And I think, irrespective of airline, it's not about the airline's willingness to improve the product. It's just seems to be a thing with airport lounges in the U.S. I've been to the Virgin Lounge in 6 or 7 U.S. cities, and as creative as Virgin are in their physical spaces, they're all pretty bad, like windowless boxes stuck in the bowels of Newark Airport.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm very happy because I went to the Admiral's Lounge, so that's the AA lounge. I went to a few because I don't fly American, but I went to the one in Sky Harbor, so in Phoenix, which was the title of our show a few episodes ago. And this is the first that they will actually revamp. And it was exactly what you said. It was like this kind of windowless experience. Most of the lounges I've been to were the Delta ones, and some of them are like also, they all look like the same, and sadly they all look like, I was about to say shit. I'm sorry, Delta, but it's very. I'm very happy to hear that. It doesn't have to pay again to the level of some of the Middle Eastern airlines, nor some of the Asian airlines. It's just to have some kind of, a bit more light, a bit, the type of fabric you put on the sofas and stuff. It doesn't need to be fancy and over the top to be a good lounge.
Yep.
And so I'm very much looking forward. And again, for those of you guys who travel through Heathrow, I think the United one is a pretty good lounge actually on international comparison. So you should check it out if you have the chance.
I think we should definitely do a segment on lounges in general, and whether those pay for lounges are worth it, and some of those lounge access cards. I would think it would be an interesting topic to explore.
Yeah, and coming back to what I said at the very beginning of the show, for the audience, we're not abandoning making topics. We're just going to spread them out some weeks to weeks. And this is one that we already said we want to do it. because I think it's really, I don't know anything about pay for lounges. And I remember I asked you, Alex, what did you think about it? I think it was a program a few weeks ago. So yeah, I would also, from my own interest, I would love to research that and see how good this is. Still in the US, Skiplagged. So tell us the story about Skiplagged for those who don't remember.
Skiplagged, yeah, I think we've talked about them in the past, but Skiplagged is a little hobby site developed by a student in the US that basically allows you to find hidden city ticket pairs. Now, hidden city ticket pairs is essentially a technique where you buy a ticket between two cities with a connection. And the connecting city is where you actually want to go. So let's say you want to fly from San Francisco to New York, but you find a ticket that's San Francisco to Boston with a stopover in New York that's much cheaper. You buy that fare even though you don't want to go to Boston, and when you land in New York on the stopover, you just get off the plane and you save yourself a lot of money. Now, you can the smarter of you will have figured out that this is great, except you can't do round trips, which is true. And also, and this is what United Airlines and Orbitz got a little bit pissed off about, is it, in essence, not even in essence, technically, is violation of your fare rules. So they sued this kid, and he is a kid. But
they sued the kid because this is something that you could do on your own by using, I mean, we make ITA Matrix and other tools. You can actually find these type of routes and do that on your own. What it was just did a small website that basically kind of made that experience of finding these type of fares a bit easier, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good site. It works well. And when the legal problems first started, he got a lot of support from frequent flyers, from a lot of like Flyer Talk. Not everybody on Flyer Talk is a fan, but a lot of them were. Reddit, people like that really got behind it. So United Airlines sued him, and it was just tossed out of court on a technicality, which is interesting. The judge ruled that because the United Airlines is based in Chicago, they brought the case to Chicago or the Illinois district. And the judge said, this is not a appropriate place for this lawsuit to take place because neither the proprietor nor the website itself have any contacts, any presence, any relation to this state. So it's not an appropriate place to have this. And I'm throwing it out of court. What United have said is, and I quote, the dismissal does not preclude the plaintiff from refiling and litigating its claim in a proper form. Actually, that's what the judge said. And United Airlines have said, basically, they're not sure if they're going to refile. I don't think that they will.
Yeah. Oh, why? Because you think it was bad publicity for them?
I think it was bad publicity. I can't imagine it's taking a lot off of their bottom line. I don't imagine that this guy's going to have the wherewithal or the resources to develop this any further. They may change the way that they file these types of fares to cut him off technologically. New York apparently is the only place that makes sense for them to do it, but he's raised nearly $80,000 in a legal defense fund. So if he wants to take this to the field, he can. So it'll be very interesting to see how
was he making any money out of this site, or was he just, I'm not sure.
That's a very good question. I don't actually know.
I don't think, for what I remember, I thought it was just kind of not a hobby, but let's say something that wasn't meant to be a business. But I don't know, because of course that would change just you mentioned Flyer, some people on Flyer Talk were not in favor, obviously, because they don't want the little secrets being, available for the wider public.
Yeah, and I think he's done the traveling world a credit by exposing, it's not intentional, it's just the intricacies and weirdness of dated airline pricing techniques. So hopefully something will change from this. But the last line of this article on Bloomberg made me laugh. It said, international media attention to the lawsuit has helped boost the site's traffic enormously. And the lawyer representing the site said, God bless United Airlines, at least from a business perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's sometimes these type of pricing techniques are a bit I mean, I don't understand them all the time, right? Some of them are legacy. Some of them probably make sense because of capacity things. Some cities are more. But for instance, I'm going to the U.S. Shortly, and I was trying to find a return fare on a single, not a return, so it's a one way from the U.S. to Europe. They're just punishing me because I haven't done the return flight, and I'm like, what? There's so many airlines in Asia or in the Middle East. I can just buy whichever leg I want, and I just pay for it, and that's it. They don't punish you that you have to do the return, otherwise I'll just increase the price by that. These are the type of I know a lot of people, the one way fares are not something that is widely used. Most people use return, but I think that these are the things that, in terms of customer experience, airlines should start looking into some people just need flexibility.
Yeah, and I think that the way that it's the same with the Saturday night stay rule. It's aimed at business travelers who aren't going to stay for a weekend, and it jacks up the price accordingly. It's annoying and very, very frustrating. Gosh, I wish we had that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get there. Talking about flexibility, Malaysian Airlines have been having a very bad, I think we said that many times, a very bad year and a half now. They just have a new CEO and new plans have been announced.
They have had a terrible 18 months. I do feel very sorry for them. And they have a new CEO, as you said, who only started officially a couple of days ago, Christoph Muller, who was largely credited with turning Aer Lingus around to the point where IAG now want to buy it. That story is still pending, by the way. So there, on his first day officially on board, there was a rumor or a sort of soft announcement that Malaysia Airlines was doing a massive fleet restructuring. Liam and Associates, a very well-respected aviation blog, reported that they are selling or leasing all of their A380s, all of their freighters, effectively shutting down mass cargo, 4 777s, and basically they will not fly to Europe anymore and completely restructure the way that the airline is operated.
Wow, sadly they had probably no choice, and they have to go very strict measures, because we know that between obviously the loss of 2 aircrafts, one we still don't know where it is, and then the image, because also after the events there were probably also some mishandling of some of the situation by both the authorities. It's not Malaysians' fault, but also a bit bad Malaysian management. So the image was really bad, and some people, then there's people were afraid to take them. I know it's silly, but it happens when you have such a bad streak. And so they just had to. And it was a legacy airline in a way, so they were probably not going from a fantastic picture to suddenly a very dire one.
No, and from what I understand, and this is anecdotal, the reputation of Malaysia Airlines in Southeast Asia remains pretty strong despite the tragedies that they've endured. So I think restructuring, at least in the short term, to focus on that market makes a lot of sense. Get rid of some of those expensive airplanes while they try and fix this. I also read somewhere, and I'll have to dig up the source to post in the show notes, that they have created a new legal entity, so a lot of the liabilities from the previous entity will be left behind.
Yeah, which is usually the case when you want to move on, obviously.
And that there is a strong possibility that they will ditch the MH code.
But will they rebrand, though? Because we had a story a few episodes ago, I can't remember now, I'll have to look it up. But we said that there were rumors about them potentially rebranding the company. Do you think, because you just said ditched, I didn't know about that, so you said ditch the MH code. Do you think that also means maybe changing the name of the company?
Quite possibly. But like I said, I think it still has a strong brand presence in Southeast Asia, and especially domestically in Malaysia. So it's hard to say, but they're going to have to do something to move away from such a tragic period.
It will also be interesting to see what happens with the 6 A380s that they have, because that is also proof. We just mentioned the A380 is having its 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to know what happens with the 6 A380s that Malaysian has and will, as part of the restructure plan, ditch, because there were some rumors at one point that Turkish would have been interested in getting some of them to test if the A380 would be a fit for their system, their hub system, which is very close to what the Middle Eastern airlines are doing. Emirates heavily relies on A380s. So it's interesting because we just said that the A380 is 10 years old now, and we have and we don't know yet because they don't have that many orders. What's the secondary market? What happens to these aircrafts once a company doesn't want them anymore? So we'll see. Do you think anyone would pick them up?
Well, those Skymark A380s are still sitting there, aren't they? And those are done frames. But this is, as you say, this is a secondary market. So these are planes that will be substantially discounted from the kind of off-the-line price, as it were. So you're right. It's going to be a really interesting test to see what happens to these planes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be. I think in the meantime, because we mentioned that rumor about Turkish being interested, I think in the meantime that it was changed. Turkish said, I think officially that they were not. Maybe they are still thinking about it. We'll see. It's true that Turkish is, since they're going into that same direction as all the three Middle Eastern airlines, would be the most likely candidate. But maybe they're just playing a game of like, oh, we want to, them as low price as possible. So
yeah. And I don't know if those Malaysian A380s were leased, so I can't imagine Airbus is going to be hugely enthusiastic about being cut out of that deal if they're just going to buy them straight from Malaysia.
Yeah,
so who
maybe
knows?
It was wet leased. I don't know. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens. But anyway, good for Malaysia. I mean, good. It's a sad situation, but probably it's good to start afresh.
Moving on, yeah.
And if the CEO was he was able to turn in our Aer Lingus, and a lot of people are thinking that he can be the person of the situation to turn these around. So we'll see.
I hope so.
We'll see. I hope so as well. Talking about turning legacy airlines around, another legacy airline in Europe, TAP. So TAP, it's a Portuguese airline. I've taken them once in a long, long time ago. Have you ever flown them? Or?
No, I haven't.
So this is one of the airlines that we don't talk a lot. I've seen them obviously very very often on the runways, but they just have a very bad streak because they're going. There's a huge strike happening. I think it's happening right now. There's more than 3,000 flights are being canceled, which basically will cut off more than 300,000 passengers. We won't have an aircraft to fly with.
And it's a pilot strike, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't want to report about every single strike that happens in the airline industry. It's not the case, but here the reason I mention it is that it's a sign of the struggle that all these legacy airlines have. We mentioned many times Lufthansa and its pilot strikes in Germany, but even in Portugal. And I don't know about how cost-effective or non-cost-effective TAP is, but it shows that probably they're going through the same struggle. Well, where probably the airline trying to get our pilots to agree to pay cuts, and they don't want to, and basically, and it's losing money. I think the airline lost almost 100 million euros last year. I think
that's ouch. And it's a 10-day strike, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a very long strike. Jeez. Actually, the court there's a court that mandated that pilots have to provide 30 flights a day. But still, 30 flights compared to what probably they have on a normal day, probably it doesn't. Ouch. But again, it's that struggle that is part of all this restructuring we're seeing, and it's we've been having also strikes in France as well with Air France. It's not an easy airline industry is not an easy one to be in. No,
and this just makes it worse. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this in 2015 in Europe.
Yeah, I think so too. Sadly, I think so too. And we'll see. I mean, in some countries unions are stronger than others, so we'll see what happens with that. But I have the feeling that we'll have other cases like this, which for us living in Europe. Me and Alex, for instance, is not always easy because you plan your routes, have a very tight schedule in the next 3 weeks, and if one airline goes on strike, I'm
just
screwed.
The knock-on effect is going to be not good. Yeah, considering your itinerary for the next month.
It's going back to some more happy news. Do you know what the Freddie Awards are?
Yes, the Freddie Awards are. I'm so glad that these exist. The Freddie Awards. Do you want to explain what they are?
No, go ahead because go ahead, and then I'll ask you a question about them.
So the Freddie Awards are named after Sir Freddie Laker, who was a pioneer in affordable international travel. And the reason why Virgin Atlantic exists, he was a huge inspiration to Richard Branson. In fact, the first or second Virgin Atlantic plane was named after Sir Freddie. He had a plane called, an airline, called Laker Airways that was bullied out of the market, frankly, by British Airways. And I think was, again, an inspiration to Richard Branson to not give in to some skullduggery, shall we say, from BA against Virgin in the 80s. And they've named this set of awards after him, which I think is a wonderful tribute to a legacy of a guy that really democratized air travel for Brits in the 70s and 80s. He was a hugely influential man.
So now they basically, I mean, you must, anyone who is part of some frequent flyer system, or basically has if your email is on a database from an airline, you probably got an email saying, yeah, you can vote.
Yeah.
You can vote and vote for us. So my question is, I will come to one after, because it's almost not, it was not the point of my question, is, do you think that basically it becomes a popularity contest and like, oh, I'm going to send lots and lots and lots of emails, and, probably that's why I'm going to win. I'm a bit sorry, I'm being skeptical because I like the idea of the award. I'm not sure about, what is the reality behind who wins. If it's more because the more marketing push and actual quality of a program.
As much as I love Sir Freddie, having looked at the past winners of this award, I worry that it is a little bit of a marketing push. American Airlines feature heavily in the past award winners. Best customer service, American Airlines, really? I don't know. But to be honest with you, it's based on loyalty programs. It's a heavy push towards loyalty programs.
Yes.
So it's that audience. And if you're a top tier American Airlines flyer, you're treated like gold. You probably get to fly the airplane if you wanted to. So I can see how they would get genuine and loyal and legitimate interest, but I do wonder if it is a bit of a marketing thing, as you say.
Yeah. Because the reason I'm saying that is because the winners, the winners, there's not a global winner. There's three winners.
Regional.
One in the North America, American Airlines. It was one in Europe, KLM Air France, and one in the Middle East, Asia. I think it's the entire. Who won? I forgot actually. I don't have it in front of me. But the reason I'm saying that is me being part of many frequent flyer program. I got, honestly, the number of emails I got about, hey, let's vote. The most were from KLM Air France, and those are the ones who won. I mean, I got maybe one single email from like an incentive to vote from Lufthansa, for instance.
And they won every single category except one.
So I don't know. I'm really, and I don't want to diss the awards here. It was just to how really relevant they are. Like, and you make a very good point. If you're a frequent flyer and you have some kind of status, even if it's not a top tier, even if it's a good status, your experience as a passenger already is different. But I mean, it's nice to see. I don't fly American Airlines, so I cannot judge if they're really best for customer service and if they really have this fantastic program for miles. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I have no exposure to them other than having a few thousand miles with BA, who are a partner, but I haven't flown on American Airlines in decades, so I couldn't tell you what they're.
Yeah, and Virgin is conspicuously absent from this.
Yeah, but Virgin are too small to feature in things like this. To be entirely honest.
I mean, but this is where you can think: is it because when you're an alliance or you're a big airline, you have the push to? It's not. I don't know, because they're. Anyway, it's. I mean, these are the kind of awards that are always nice to hear about, because they still represent some kind of reality, but which reality is the question mark. Going back to a sad, going to a sad reality, there was this big earthquake that happened in Nepal. Yeah, it's I have a few friends. I have one that lives there, and I know he's okay and everything. He's helping out. So first, he told me that if he's going to set up a program because a lot of people are offering help, so you can go through the usual channels, the Red Cross and other channels. I haven't heard of airlines doing any specific thing, at least in Europe and the US, for them. Maybe they exist, and please, if anyone knows about them, just send us a tweet or an email about them. So he told me that there will be a specific program for people that are more into the tech industry, because himself is. So maybe it would be interesting for you. The reason we mention it here in a program, besides people may be able to help, is that there have been some nice stuff happening in the airline industry very close to actually the events. There's some airlines like Indigo and SpiceJet. There are two low-cost airlines that that usually are, low-cost airlines are very close to their money, and say that because, they already operate at very thin, razor-thin margins, so they cannot do a lot. But they've reduced the price of the tickets between Kathmandu and Delhi to significantly, like it really becomes extremely cheap, and they actually fly relief material for free. I think it's it's nice to hear stories like that.
It is nice, and I mean beyond the broader scale of this tragedy, it is awful. My family has a long history with Nepal. It's been heartening to see the response from just about every country in the world. But also what's been interesting is how they've had to deal with it from an infrastructure perspective, particularly around aviation. They had to close the airport for quite a long time to check the runway, and now they have said that they can't accept airplanes over 187 tons because they don't think that the runway integrity is there to safely allow them. So hopefully that will change in the next day or two, but that just further exacerbates a really tough problem for relief and aid and things like that.
Well, so I'll put some links, and again, if anyone knows of any good program, I mean, it could be any. I'll put some, the usual ones. But if anyone knows about initiatives from the airline industry, since the podcast is about the airline industry, please do not hesitate to let us know, and we'll be happy to broadcast those as well. Going back to the US once more, and last time for this part of the news, this saga is, and I'll let you talk in a few minutes about the continuum of this saga between the Middle Eastern airlines and the US airlines. But just before you go to your bit of news, there was an article that I read very recently that was provided to me by Gen Kanai, our friend who lives in Tokyo. And very interesting because it shows that since the Open Skies Agreement between the US and China, for a long time, and that's a bit, the reason I'm saying that is it mirrors a bit the story with the Middle East. When the industry have signed Open Skies, it's like, oh, we want access to your market, not thinking that the opposite actually will at some point bite them in the ass, right, to use that term. And basically this is what happens right now with the Middle Eastern airline. They're overpowering American Airlines. And here, that article, I'll put the link, says that the same has just happened with China. I mean, Chinese airlines are not in the category of, the fancy Middle Eastern airlines, but in terms of the number of flights between the US and China, now Chinese airlines are actually the majority.
And they have a lot of money.
And they have also, of course, a lot of money, but that shows that, it's competition, as you said, and they will at some point have to reflect about, will they one day say, oh, we want to renegotiate Open Skies with China?
Yeah,
I don't know, but
it seems very likely. And I think that the Pacific is going to be the next market that gets really a lot more capacity because of this, which is a good thing. And it'll be interesting to see how the legacy airlines, and by that I mean the ones that have been serving that route for decades, react.
Yes. It's fascinating, but I mean we'll keep following this. But I believe this is really close to the story of the Middle East, and talking about which, there's a story that you found recently, just this morning.
This morning, this was announced. Yeah,
that is actually proving the point you were saying, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. Go ahead.
So one of the observations that we saw come up in the discussions, the ongoing discussions about this battle between the Middle Eastern three and the U.S. carriers, is that the Middle Eastern carriers are throwing additional capacity at U.S. destinations, adding new U.S. destinations, I think as part of a tactic in this ongoing battle, but also because that window might close pretty soon if any of the U.S. carriers get their way and there's a temporary or permanent freeze put on new Gulf airline service to the U.S. So on the back of that, yesterday, Qatar Airways said it is significantly expanding its service to the U.S. and adding direct flights to L.A., Boston, a second daily flight to Atlanta, to New York, and introducing service to Atlanta, which is such a smack in the face to Delta that it's clearly calculated. So they're throwing state-of-the-art, brand new airplanes, A350s and 777s with their vastly superior interior product right into the front door of some of the airlines who are battling them in the first place. So this will go on and on and
I
on.
think it will go on. Like you said last episode, which by the way was not exactly last week. Forgive us for not doing an episode last week. You said that probably also they maybe putting a lot of routes now before the hammer comes down. So there's like, okay, let's deal with the capacity now, because maybe at some point we'll be blocked. So at least we'll have the current routes there.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also part of it. But Qatar is known as well to be a bit pushy sometimes. So we'll see. It's and I say pushy not in a bad way, but it's a fun story, at least from an outsider point of view.
Yeah.
Like you and me, it's fun to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in planning at one of the U.S. airlines right now, trying to see where all of these new competitors are going to be popping up.
And I'm sure the U.S. airports are very happy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They're like, wow,
It's
come
new
on,
revenue,
more
yeah.
customers, more.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of the debate. Anyway, you see, we cannot escape that story. Every single week, there's something about it.
It's like a soap opera. It's wonderful.
Going to the innovation bit of the news. So the Apple Watch was released. We had Dean Johnson on the last episode. We talked a bit about the Apple Watch. It was just a day before it got released. So there's a few reviews out there. I haven't found yet reviews specifically about apps, air travel apps.
No.
They're not really there yet. The reviews are a bit on and off about the watch itself. Some people say that it's a bit of a letdown. Maybe the expectations were too high. Some other people say that actually, and this is after a few days of use, they say that it's actually a great experience, because they say you have to set your expectations and not thinking that this will be a phone, because most people are still, would have the language of a phone translated to a watch. It's more something that you glance at, something you do very quick actions with. And thus they say that at least the stock applications are already, for some of them, very good for that. Many people criticize apps, and again, not airline apps. I haven't found anything specific about them apps, because obviously they were designed without the watch yet. So most of them were like they were rushed to be there on April 24th, but they're not there, in terms of what it is, what the watch is good at. So they will iterate.
Have you? So the important question is, have you ordered one?
No, still not.
No, me either.
Honestly, not. So for the first time, I was with a friend of mine, Brian Solis, the other night in London, and we had dinner. He had one on his wrist. So I took it from his wrist and I put it on. And the first thing that I saw was, of course, he had a Mickey Mouse thing. So I was like, he plays on that. He says everybody goes for fancy stuff, so I want to go for Mickey Mouse. But for me, for my wrist, it was small, and that was a big model. That was, there's two sizes.
Oh,
there was
interesting.
the larger model, and I still found it small. I played a bit with it. It's hard because, again, the notifications were not done to me, so it's a bit, So will I buy one? I'm still not convinced. I'm a geek in some ways, so I'll probably end up buying one, but maybe I'll wait for version 2. Maybe I'll wait for more friends having it and showing me that it can do something that actually helps me. Will you buy one?
Maybe in a 3 or 4 generations time, or 2 or 3. I don't know. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. It's the one though. There's a TripIt has just released an app. So again, I haven't seen it. I've seen only the fact that TripIt has released an app. But being now currently on a trip, so here I'm in Luxembourg from a hotel room, and I'm using TripIt to put everything. So I have my flights in there. I have my hotel reservations. So honestly, this is a use case. I would say maybe the watch could be useful because I get like the notification, the gate change stuff, everything is centralized, and I get that. So this is a use case that if the TripIt app is well done, which again I cannot say, but that would be something that would be interesting to me. Again, not probably justify the buying a watch just for TripIt,
right.
but I'm saying if more and more apps are like that in terms of being very useful at specific times, and more, then at some point it will make me tip and to say, okay, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I TripIt is such a great app on the phone. I hope that they do the watch app justice, or the rest of the app justice with their watch iteration.
The story that was fun, I'm sure you read it as well, it was Qantas. So Qantas has released an Apple Watch app. I still haven't, it's not easy to say. An Apple Watch app, and which, again, no reviews, but a very funny bit. That makes you think about the user experience in general. There were, as soon as it was released, as soon as people had the watch and were trying to check in with the watch, so, you can have the QR code.
Right, which we all said was going to be the killer app.
The killer app. So basically, Qantas, the problem they realized that if you try to put basically your wrist along with the watch under the reader, it doesn't fit. So you cannot basically you cannot actually check in because the reader is too low, so it doesn't fit. So you have to remove your watch, put your watch under it. Because I guess the reader was made for phones, and when you have a phone, it's very thin, so you just pass it under, and then. But of course, if you have your hand and wrist, if you're a human being, then it doesn't work.
Fair enough.
shows simply that it's more complicated than just releasing an app. You have to think about this stuff.
That's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. TechCrunch wrote an article about yet another startup called, I don't know how to say, DUFL.
Duffel.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to make out of it. So to make it very simple, the idea is, and I'm going to ask you if you like it or not, the idea is that you download the app, you sign up for the service, Duffel sends you a suitcase, you can actually put your stock clothes, the kind of clothes you always travel with. Then Duffel will take it back, store it. I mean, they will make it pictures, everything, so they will have like a whole, log of what you have in there. And basically, every time you fly, you say, oh, I need to get, I don't know, well, I'm in Luxembourg and I'm traveling to Frankfurt in 2 days. I need to be in Frankfurt. Please, Duffel, send my suitcase in Frankfurt. And so you have your suitcase with your stock type of clothes waiting for you because they ship it. They didn't put it in your plane with you. What do you think about this?
When I first heard about it, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But the more I thought about it, I can see the use case. So yeah, they send a bag to your house and you fill it up with the stuff that you travel with most. They take it away. They repack it in the most efficient way possible after doing the inventory, like you say. And then you say, okay, I'm going to go to Hong Kong, and they FedEx it to you. Literally FedEx it to you.
Yeah, they use FedEx, exactly, yeah.
So, and I was like, and the pricing model is $10 a month, and then each trip costs $100, flat fee. Yep. And I thought, that's expensive. That's ridiculous. What a silly thing. And then I thought, wait a minute. If I'm doing 4 flights on that trip, and I'm being charged $35 to $50 a bag, which I could be on many of these airlines, that's paid for itself already.
You're right.
But would I use it? Hell no.
I don't think so either. And I mean, the one problem I see is that I'm not sure they have scale. I mean, these are not that many people, travel that much. They would use that. And also, so they say that you can switch clothes at any time, so you can send new ones, different ones, etc. But it becomes really difficult to manage. Does that mean that you have to buy your stock clothes, again, to use that term, like I said? Do I need to buy an extra 2 pairs of 2 shirts, white shirts, plain shirts, to put in that thing over there in their storage and to be sent to me? They clean everything and it looks like a nice idea. I'm not sure in real life it actually works out. I mean, currently, by the way, it's only US. So maybe when you do these type of trips in the US and you'll be surcharged for luggage, maybe it makes sense, economical sense. I still don't see people changing their habit for it, but maybe it will work. Well, I mean, it's
the comments on the TechCrunch article are hilarious. My favorite one is this one, which I took the time to write down and put in my own show notes. What a great idea. I have an idea too. Brusher. When you go to bed, you grab your phone, push the brusher button, and within 10 minutes, someone will come to your house and brush your teeth for only $5. which is a much harsher way of saying what Paul and I just said.
Well, yeah, the on-demand economy, right? It's
Yeah.
like, and I mean, to a certain point, in some use cases, it actually works. I mean, we both like Uber. I mean, at least we use it, and so. But here, I mean, where's the limit? Maybe in 50 years, people will do that and ship their clothes. I don't know. You know what? I'd rather actually not ship my clothes, but say, okay, you know, I have very few ones that I always travel with, and just buy, you know, like stuff, you know, having.
Yeah.
When I arrive on the ground, I don't know. I mean, I traveled here for 3 weeks, and I don't have that much stuff with me.
No.
I mean, I will survive. I don't think I would FedEx stuff to myself. Anyway, if you travel business class, though, I mean, if you're lucky enough to travel business class, there's a new concept that you found out, Alex.
I like this. So some of the biggest aircraft interior manufacturers have been working on this concept for 3 years, which is essentially a dovetail business class seat. Now, when you look at the pictures, there's nothing particularly revolutionary about the way it looks. For those of you that have seen the coffin, which it is pejoratively referred to, which is the wishbone or herringbone format of your head against the wall of the airplane, your feet sticking out into the aisle, angled.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. I quite like it. Several airlines. It was first introduced by Virgin Atlantic, and several airlines have either licensed it or copied it as a result. But what's so unique about this particular arrangement is how light and how cheap it is relative to your standard business class seat. And also that it's very, very quick to install, which airlines will find obviously very appealing, and very, very easy to maintain because of its kind of modular design. So when you look at the pictures, you're like, I don't get it. What's so special about this? But from an airline perspective, the cost of entry is much, much lower without taking away from the kind of creature comforts that we're all used to, like, you know, in-seat power, lie flat, 18.5-inch screen, USB ports, and all that stuff. Which is great, because I think it means that we'll see a lot more airlines upgrading their business class product beforehand, and those that don't have any business class product introducing it. The one thing, and I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this, Paul, that did strike me as how would I feel about this is instead of having your head against the wall and your feet pointing out like the current herringbone formation, in this instance, your feet are up against the wall and your head would be up against the aisle. Now, you're completely enclosed and there's privacy screens, but it seems like it would make it much harder to look out the window because your head is much physically further away from the window. Have you seen the pictures?
Yeah, I've seen. Again, it's not like you said. It's not something totally. You know, it's not one of these designs or patents that we see. It never actually come to fruition because it's just completely out there. I don't know. You know, it's a question of course, I would prefer to see through the window. But at the end of the day, it's like in some airlines now. I think United has in business class when you're facing the opposite way of travel, which I find I've never.
BA used to have that in their business class too.
It's they have to find ways to come modules to find as many potential possibilities of so you get used to it.
It seems like it would be a much more. This new version would be a much more private feeling because you're just looking out into light, which is lovely. I mean, if you wanted to look at actual stuff, you would need to get closer to the window and look down, but you would have it feels like you would have
but most of the flight in terms of long haul you don't look out the window,
right?
I mean, I do, you do, because we're special,
so I can definitely see the appeal. Instead of looking out into the aisle, you're looking out into just sort of a much more private space. So I hope someone buys this, I'm sure they will, and installs it because it looks like a very interesting evolutionary step.
The only thing that I would say about this window thing is the one thing that sometimes is a bit. I've flown a few times in herringbone in business class, and the one thing that I still find a little bit not very nice in terms of experience is that since you have the window basically behind you, sometimes you cannot really see well the screen in front of you, and you have to pull the blinds down because otherwise it's too
That's
much
a good point.
glare.
That is a very
So
good point.
So maybe there's stuff like that, like what you just said about just having just a window as the only thing you say, and not seeing basically other passengers going around and staff and everything. Maybe it's part of why they did that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's nice. It's a nice idea, and it looks solid. So I hope it comes to fruition.
Yeah, I'll come. I haven't had time. I haven't found. Don't have the link yet, for this time. But next time, I'll promise you. I'll show you a seat that Philippine Airlines wanted to put in business class, stacked one upon each other. You'll see.
Oh my
crazy.
goodness!
So prefer having this kind of watching out of the window than anything else. Going back to airports, in the airports, Dusseldorf, which I will sadly not use. I thought I would be using to go to Hong Kong in a few days. We actually will meet in Hong Kong as well in a few days. I'm going through Frankfurt. But Dusseldorf has introduced a robot, a valet robot for your car. So basically, you arrive with your car. The robot takes the measurement of your car and basically puts it in storage for you when you're not there, and when you come back, basically finds the car back for you. So it's a very efficient way of doing things, and also it allows you not to like drive through the entire parking and having to walk to the elevators and go apparently where the robot is. And when I say robot, do not think about Transformers, right? We're not thinking about some humanoid that like talks to you, but I mean, I don't know how expensive it is, and I know it's actually something that's working. It's not just an idea.
Whoa.
It's and it's not the first time that you had stuck cars, right? You have parking with elevators where the car is actually in the elevator, but I think it's a fun. I would love to put my car there and see how it works. Dean told us, you remember last episode, that when you don't know where you park your car, his new Porsche app and smartwatch, Apple Watch app,
will
allow
tell
you
you
to tell you where
which
the car
is
is.
so cool.
This time you don't even have to worry about it because you come back and you give the number or something. I guess maybe it's even on an app, and basically your car is being delivered in front of the parking. It's pretty cool.
So good. So
I
good.
liked it. I liked it. Back to the skies. Four Seasons. You mentioned. Airlines going into the hotel industry, like to expand the passenger experience. This is the opposite. Four Seasons is actually doing a plane. So they are refurbishing 757-200, reconfiguring the Boeing into something really fancy. I mean, we'll have to follow the link to see the pictures and to see how luxurious it is. It's probably not as luxurious as a private 747-8 that Alex mentioned earlier, but why do you think about Four Seasons going into basically? It's not an airline, right? It's a single plane. It's an experience. You can go as a customer. What do you think about it? Do you think it's a marketing thing, or do you think they're actually catering for customers that want to sleep in the skies or something?
I have no idea what they were thinking. I mean, the physical product and the food, and it's managed. It's wet leased by TAG Aviation, who are a specialist in luxury charters. But I don't get it. Like, if they're moving into the holiday space, that makes sense because it's a very high margin business if you can get it right, especially the luxury thing. And what they're doing is selling round the world itineraries for something crazy like $120,000 to do a 6 or 23-day itinerary around the world on this airplane. And there's definitely a market for that. And these guys are so good at luxury that if anybody can do it, it's them. But
that's a product. That doesn't make a business game.
No, you're right. So I'd be fascinated to see if there's a market for somebody that has $132,000 to drop on a 3-week vacation and isn't going to go private.
Yeah, exactly. What wouldn't you charter a plane, or at least there are companies that allow you to co-share, charter planes and stuff. So again, maybe you're appealed by the product because the product looks amazing, and like you said, Four Seasons. If there's anyone being able to do luxury, Four Seasons is probably one of the top 3. So they will. The product looks amazing, and I wish I could be they would offer me a ticket just for me to be able to see that, even just on the ground to actually look at that plane. But they say they will be. The staff will be hotel trained. They'll have an executive chef. There will be a journey manager, which is basically a concierge. They'll have, of course, the pilots, engineers, and everything. So I don't know. I mean, we'll follow up. I don't know if. I mean, hopefully we'll follow up because hopefully we'll see. Usually when these things don't work, they kind of die out very quietly. Nobody talks about it. But it would be. So if anyone listens to us and he's from Four Seasons and wants to invite,
yeah, we will.
Two nice guys just for.
We'll find some time to write about it.
We'd be okay to go to the Maldives. Yeah. We're not very far, right? And so please just let us know. You have our email and everything. We know how to behave in a plane.
Well, Paul does anyway.
London. So this morning, so we're Monday today. Probably I say that because the show will probably not be released today on Monday, so probably during the week. Sorry, guys. I took a flight from London to Luxembourg, and I was flying BA. And when I was last night, I went to TripIt, and TripIt shows me Terminal 1. I'm like, what? Terminal 1? There's no way. I mean, BA flies out for Terminal 5 and sometimes for Terminal 3. And Terminal 1, when I say what, is because Terminal 1 is closing down on June 29th. It's been on service for like a very long time. Most of the airlines have moved away. Most of them were actually Star Alliance, so they've moved to Terminal 2, which is, since I fly a lot Star Alliance, I fly a lot from Terminal 2. And so this morning I was in Terminal 1, and my goodness, Alex, you would have loved it. The thing is empty. Oh. The terminal is empty. There's, I think, less than 10 routes, that are leaving from Terminal 1, all from BA. All the other airlines are gone. So only bits of the actual terminal are still in use. You can still do. I'll show you some pictures, Alex. They've blocked out parts of it. So it's a very efficient airport because suddenly, when you have like almost no one in it, you go through security and everything like in a breeze. But
sounds like paradise.
Yeah. And I always to be honest, I always liked Terminal 1 because for me it was always efficient. I usually travel during the week, so don't take my word for it because during the weekend I heard it wasn't always great. But it's a good memory, and there's a small campaign by London Heathrow on Twitter. Says if you have memories about Terminal 1, you can tweet or put pictures and put a hashtag on it, which is T1 lights off. So if anyone wants to participate, it's not like a huge campaign, but it's still an era that passes. Closing a terminal down and then demolishing it. Do you have memories in that terminal?
I do. I mean, 47 years it's been in service. That's an unbelievable amount of time. It's a strange terminal. It's always been kind of a strange terminal.
Yes.
It has this kind of retro space age feel to it. And there's
That's a good way to put it.
It's sort of labyrinthine, and you wander down passages. And I think Terminal 1 was where I managed to somehow go through immigration, get out to my gate, take a wrong turn, like looking for a vending machine or a bathroom or something, and end up back landside somehow. It's one of those terminals because it's kind of been like bolted on this bit here and removed that bit over the 47 years it's been in existence. But man, Heathrow is going through it's not even a facelift, it's a total overhaul.
Yeah, so actually, if you look from the skies, if you look the layout of Heathrow was a bit, like you said, bizarre. I mean, let's not even talk about Terminal 4, which is kind of out there. But the three terminals, 1, 2, and 3, the 2 was demolished some time ago, there's a new 3, were a bit of a X layout. And on the other side, the Terminal 5, which is the big terminal from BA, is very strict. It's a cube. It's a nice cube. It's not a US cube. Sorry. And they're like... but if you look at Terminal 2, so just go on Google Maps, if you look at Terminal 2, you'll see that what they actually are doing now is they are replicating the exact same layout that you have on the west side, which is obviously BA, so Terminal 5, on the east side, which will be, at some point, because that's their plan, that they're going to demolish Terminal 1, which is closing down, build over it the extension of Terminal 2. So Terminal 2 will be exactly like Terminal 5, so this a rectangle. And over time, they will, provided they have enough money, also destroy Terminal 3 and expand again Terminal 2 with an additional cube, rectangle. So basically, just look on Google Maps at how does the west part of the airport look like with Terminal 5. There's 3 rectangles, 3 buildings. This will be most basically mirrored on the east side. And by the way, Terminal 5 should be named Terminal West, and Terminal 2 expanded should be named Terminal East, and that will be it.
I am excited about this.
Yeah,
because
the only
getting around
problem
Heathrow
is
a
like,
bit of a
will
pain.
we be alive when it's
Well,
done?
true. I've heard pretty short timelines for even Terminal 3 being demolished, so I think we'll see it. I think we'll benefit from it.
No, we will. And I mean, if you travel through Heathrow, anyone, just take a look when you are in terminal. When you take off and you land, you can still see Terminal 1. It's still active. If you're still lucky or unlucky, I still call it lucky to fly. Like I was from Luxembourg, I think it's Hanover. I mean, there are a few, of course, medium routes, European routes from there. I mean, just take pictures and post them and hashtag T1 lights off if you have any memories. But I think it's an era that passes and it's still, I'm too much of a geek, but it's a bit of...
No, it's important. I think it's important.
So, going to the Middle East.
Yeah,
again,
from the old to the very new. Emirates, they must have felt a little bit of a pinch to react like this, but Emirates has announced that they are going to introduce a apartment-style first-class suite that is quote-unquote commercially viable, which is a strange thing to say.
Apartment style is what? The residence.
So yeah, Etihad have the residence, which is a apartment. I mean, it's ridiculous. It also costs $20,000 one way between Abu Dhabi and London. That's a 7-hour flight. So do the math on the cost per hour there. It's also been sold out for a long, long time. What Emirates are doing apparently is luxury, high-end, but not as crazy as that. And they've compared it, and I really like this comparison. They've said it will feel like a private cabin on a train, on a luxury train, which is a really nice. And I've had I've been fortunate enough to do something like that on a train, on an old steam train in South Africa, and it is very self-contained and private, even though you are still on a train cabin. And Emirates say they're going to have this in the next kind of 2 to 3 months. They'll have a mock-up and a prototype done, and hopefully by the end of the year they'll have it for sale.
Wow, it's interesting, the train comparison. It also did that. It did old train route. I don't think it exists anymore. 2008-9 between Kanazawa and Ueno. So basically between a little bit east of Tokyo to Tokyo was a 7, 8, 9 hour ride, and I upgraded myself in a way to a private cabin. It's not as expensive upgrading yourself in a first class in a plane, or not even a residence, obviously. And I like the idea, obviously. Do you think, because do you think it will be like Singapore has done the Singapore? There's a first class.
I think so.
There's a suite.
I think it will be very similar. But what they're saying is that it should be very similar to the current pricing for their first class product, which is very different from the Singapore and from the Etihad product offering. So very sensible move if they can. I mean, I'm sure they can make the economics work. They're Emirates, but I think it could be really interesting to see. And I guarantee our friends over at Design Air will be some of the first to experience this. So Johnny, hook us up, man.
Yeah, we're very jealous, but it is smart. It is smart because it's smart because I think Emirates, out of the three, are we mentioned last week with the Copenhagen Dubai route that will not have a first class. I think they will probably offer that in some selected routes that they know have high yield, so thus people will take it. It will be interesting. It's not. The way they put it out, listening to what you just said, is not as, out there as,
No.
the Residence. The Residence was really a marketing to see, like, we have the best product in the skies ever.
No, exactly. They're not saying this is luxury redefined and all that. They're just saying it's going to be awesome, but you'll actually be able to afford it.
Yeah, plus, let's not forget that Emirates is far, far, far more A380s than they have than other that Etihad has. So Etihad is easy. You put a Residence in three planes, and there you go.
Yeah.
If Emirates had to retrofit all their, to be honest, what I would leave, because I'll fly Emirates in a few days, and again later this month, it would be interesting to see if they at some point decide to change the design of the product, because now their design looks dated, is a bit harsh. But when you see what other, not only the other Middle Eastern airlines, what they have done in the front of the cabin, they went for something that is slightly more upscale. Maybe Emirates should think about how do we reimagine it. I'm sure they already are planning it, but it's one last question. One last question for you there. Why do you think that this type of products are reserved to the A380? Wouldn't it be possible to have such things in a 777?
It feels purely like a space issue thing. I mean, you have just that much more available real estate to give over to projects like this. So I think, honestly, the A380 is really the only viable aircraft for this type of project.
Okay. Well, or you just give it to Four Seasons.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
IFAN. Yeah. Last story of the week, IFAN.
So we talked about this before we even had a podcast. And
correct.
Airbus had created this rather extraordinary looking electric airplane that uses its own, called the IFAN light aircraft. And it was unveiled formally about a year ago. It's a two-seater, so we're not even talking a commercial here. It's purely a test bed. But it's a two-seater, low-wing, high-tail airplane that's taking basically what we've all learned from the last couple of decades of hybrid cars and combining a electric engine with a, in this instance, kerosene, what they call range extender, to keep the battery topped up. But what they've announced is that they're actually going to put this thing into production, and they're building a final assembly line in Pau in the south of France. And they've actually talked about by the 2050s having a 90-seat, what they call e-thrust concept aircraft. So basically an electric airplane. And this is obviously the first of many baby steps towards something like that. But the benefits being obviously much lower fuel consumption, and they sound very odd, but they're not to the same roar of a jet engine. They're a kind of a high-pitched whine almost. So this is really cool, and kudos to Airbus for pushing in this direction. I'm very interested to see one of these fly and how it's going to happen. But it's actually done by an Airbus subsidiary called Voltaire. But a nice, really cool project.
Will you get one?
If they want to give me one, I'll take it. Yeah, it's flown. I mean, these things have flown. This isn't pie in the sky. Literally,
I know
they've flown. So it's just
actually flown. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so
it's just
I don't know how to fly. So I mean, I've done lessons, but I don't know how to fly. So I would just crash the thing. I'd rather. I think I'll stick with a Tesla. By the way, I don't have a Tesla. I wish, right?
That'd be kind of fun. This is like the Tesla of the skies. It's probably the simplest.
Exactly.
I could have said that and saved about 30 seconds.
Yeah, though the design looks, how do you say that? It's not bad, but it's not Tesla either.
It's definitely not Tesla.
All right, it's still, Tesla has this kind of a racing thing going on, that's kind of a bit both racy and at the same time, classy. Some people say tacky for some bits. I don't know.
I don't think they're tacky. I think they're cool.
Yeah, I think they're pretty cool as well. But it's not here. The IFAN is not that. But it's not the plan either, right? By the way, it's
exactly.
I've seen one flying actually in Farnborough.
Nice.
Yeah, last year. So that was quite something. At first, it was because obviously you have huge aircraft flying, and that thing started flying. It was very far because I was even on the side of the runway, and I was like, what is this?
Right.
Why is that flying? I mean, I want to see your 787. I want to see the big stuff. I don't want to see that small thing. Right. And then a friend of mine who invited me there started explaining what it was. I was like, oh, I see. Okay, that's interesting actually.
That's cool that you got to see it.
As well. Yeah, for a few minutes. I think I have pictures or something. I'll put them out. So as we said, no question of the week, no topic of the week. We'll do that in a more. You see, we already done like an hour and a half just of the news. We want to have the episodes a bit more tight, so we'll go directly to Lucy. Who's Lucy?
Lucy, London City Airport. And you know what? I am going to say this is my favorite airport in London for so many reasons, especially if you are a light traveler like both Paul and I are. London City Airport is the only airport that is actually in London. The others are way outside of London, as you may have discovered to your horror when you've tried to get into town from Heathrow or Gatwick or Stansted or Luton or any of the others that claim to be anywhere near London. London City Airport is right in the Docklands, which is the heart of the financial district of London. It is on not a peninsula. It's based on on an old shipping dockyard inlet. And the runway is only 4,900 feet long, which is not a long runway at all. So it is almost exclusively the domain of not just domestic, but European traffic. So
it's mostly if short to medium haul for you.
So the top 5 destinations are Amsterdam, Zurich, Edinburgh, Frankfurt, and Geneva. You'll also notice that those are major financial capitals as well. So this is taking bankers from one banking city to another banking city.
The city too, exactly. Yeah.
So the reasons I like this city I love the city, of course, but the airport is extremely efficient. It's small and it is designed to accommodate those with hand luggage only, who travel frequently, know exactly what they're doing, are in and out.
It's really business travelers. I mean, although business travelers now the definition has been extended to a lot of people, but it's really people that go even sometimes just for the day, back and forth, just carry on, nothing fancy, just go directly to the gate. It's very fast. Yeah, it's one of the fastest. I did T1 this morning, only that T1 was empty. This one is actually a real airport.
Very busy airport, which they're expanding to accommodate. But another reason I love this airport is that no matter which direction you're taking off or landing, you always get a great ride with a great view. And here's why. So you have the short runway, but you're also surrounded by buildings, which not only are solid and not fun to crash into, but also come with very strict noise abatement regulations.
Right.
So it sounds totally impractical to put an airport there, but the engineers that designed it came up with a really good solution. And that solution was make the landing approach as steep as possible to minimize the noise.
Yes.
So on an average airport, the approach angle, the angle of the airplane, the glide slope to the ground is around 2 to 3 degrees. When London City first opened, it was a stomach-dropping 7.5 degrees, which was unheard of.
Yeah, it's not anymore, sadly.
No, so you have to know what you're doing. Only certain types of airplanes are certified to go in there, and pilots have to go through a special course to learn how to shoot this particular approach. So often if you're coming from Western Europe, you fly parallel to the airport and do a U-turn basically over Big Ben and come in and land. So you get the most spectacular view of the city, at which point the pilot gets the airplane in the dirtiest configuration possible, i.e. full flaps, gear down, and they're on this crazy glide slope. And then you have to make sure that you don't run out of runway at the end of this very short runway, because there's just water at the end of it. And then you taxi back along the runway, which you landed on. So you turn around at the end of the runway, taxi on, and then you walk across the apron to the terminal. It's a great, for the aviation enthusiast, it is a dream come true.
It is. Actually, so you mentioned they were expanding the terminal.
They're expanding the terminal.
For more people. Will they, or are they expanding the runway?
They are trying to. They've been met with fierce resistance from local...
from the neighborhood.
Yeah, because of noise and all these other things. So whether or not... so here's the drama. I just remembered it. The plan to expand the terminal and the airport and the runway was given the go-ahead in February 2015.
Yes, we mentioned it.
We did. We covered it. I was very excited about it. But then in March, Boris Johnson, the mayor of London, overturned the approval. And that's where we are today. So expect a sizable fight there. Yeah, it's disappointing. Huge. I just remember that. It's hugely disappointing that happened.
Yeah, but again, we know that noise is one of the biggest fights in all airports, by the way. But here, of course, when you talk about city airports, not only London City, but any type of city airports, you end up having these issues. And it's still an amazing, even if it's in current configuration, not having to change. it's an amazing airport. It's extremely efficient. I know I say a lot efficient when we're talking about airports because for the moment we mostly covered airports we like. But this is one of the, probably you're right, the most efficient airports you can ever be in. Also, and I would say that, and I know I will sound a little bit, I don't know how to say it, maybe elitist or something. It's not only because the airport is well designed, it's also because the type of people that travel there are basically almost everyone is a business traveler. So security, everything goes like a breeze because everyone is basically wants to go as fast as possible.
They're very experienced. They're prepped by the time they get security.
So I apologies for those who don't travel as much. I was not saying that, like you know that scene from Up in the Air with George Clooney when he arrives at security and chooses which line he will take depending on what kind of people are in front of him. Oh, there's these old people. Oh, they're like the parents with a kid.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. You are not either. But it's true that you can still feel a difference when it seems like you're in a fast track in the entire airport, basically, and that's very appreciated.
Yeah, you can breeze through in no time. And actually, BA operate a business class only A318 to New York via Shannon.
They're not. I think because I've never taken it, but I don't think they're the current business product that is offered by BA.
No.
If you fly BA to New York via Heathrow, you'll have a better, and again, it's only a 6 hours flight, but you'll have the current product for business class. Whereas I think it's the oldest. It's not completely lie flat. I mean, still, it's a great deal.
Yeah,
you can fly from the city to New York.
Yeah, it's like many of the other business class. I don't think there's business class only airlines. I don't think there's permanent IFE or anything like that. But I do think that there's internet on the.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I might have just made that up. But if anyone's flown on it, it's actually not too expensive, all things considered. It's worth exploring.
Yeah, worth exploring. So, for those who like efficient airports, if you ever travel, even coming to London, you actually you should look at Lucy because it's really very efficient. Even if you're a tourist, honestly, you're very quickly to the city from that airport. So it's one that you should look at. No low cost, sadly, but good airline still.
Yeah.
I think I said no low cost, but I'm not even sure actually. Maybe there might be. Actually.
No, I don't think there are. I think it's the bigger. It's BA, Lufthansa, CityJet, Flybe, Swiss Air, Alitalia, and then a couple of regional carriers.
And on this, I mean, it's an airport that I don't know much more than that because it's so every time I go there, I basically spend 20 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. You can get there with just minutes to spare before your flights leaves because you're going to get through.
So we cannot say it's a good airport for layovers because you're probably
never there.
Because that's the point. You're not going to stay there. You're going to go breeze through and just go to your destination. So sadly, it's not a good airport for layover, but you still have some amenities. Don't think it's just a cube and a hangar. It's actually something a bit more. But yeah, it's not an airport for layovers, but one of the best in terms of business travel or fast travel. On this, Alex, I'll see you in a couple of days, actually, in the other side of the planet. We'll see each other in Hong Kong. We don't think we'll be recording an episode there because we're both very busy. So probably next week, we'll see how it goes. But until then, we thank you, the audience, for listening, and let us know what you think about that format, just basically focusing on the news.
And also, don't forget to send in questions and topics of the week that you want us to cover. Apologies if we haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but if you have anything that you want us to talk about or explore in depth, please get in touch either on Twitter or Facebook or on email at hello@layovers.to.
Exactly. And on this, guys, happy flying.
Safe travels.
On behalf of Layovers, the entire crew would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast, and we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.